This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Okay, Amy, we're going to play a game called Pitch Me This. Basically, I want you to pitch a random business to me as a sales strategy. So try to sell me something. Does that work for you?
Sure. Can you narrow it down a little bit, or just any business, or?
No, I'm going to give you a prompt.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I was just kind of giving you like the rundown
rules.
of what you're going to do. I want you to pitch me a perfume, a fragrance, but it smells like fresh out of the oven pepperoni pizza.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So pitch me that in like a minute, 30 seconds, as fast as you can. Try to get me to buy a perfume that smells like pizza.
Okay. Daniela, I heard that pepperoni pizza is absolutely your favorite. And we have something that maybe you want to think about, a perfume, a fragrance that smells just like pepperoni pizza. So you can smell it all the time, and you can find other people who love pepperoni pizza who will be attracted to you. They'll want to, talk to you and engage with you. It will make you, instantly something to talk about. Do you have a lot of do you wear a fragrance?
I smell like a cupcake usually.
Oh, a cupcake. So are you okay switching from sweet to savory, like as your preference, or what do you think about that?
I'm thinking about it. Does it actually smell good, or am I just going to smell like food?
Well, you already just smell like food. So really, You're just smelling like a different food. So
yeah, that's true. Good point.
Do you, this is why I'm not a salesperson, because I would have a really hard time selling pepperoni pizza scented.
No, you did great. You did great. To be fair, that's like the weirdest smell ever. I don't know anybody who would want to smell like a pepperoni pizza, like no matter how much you love it. Like,
yeah. And sadly, I think there are people who smell like pepperoni pizza. I mean, I think if you work in a pizzeria, you probably go home smelling like pepperoni pizza. So, maybe it lets you relive that, college job or something reminiscent.
My mom used to watch this telenovela when I was like a teenager. And I remember like in detail the plot, because there was this like one of the drama, like the situations, I guess, that they were addressing was that this girl was gorgeous, but she couldn't get a boyfriend because she worked at a cheese factory. She worked at like a factory where they were making cheese, so she was always touching and handling and like packaging cheese, and she always smelled like cheese, so she would always be stinky, and so she could not get a boyfriend because every guy that she would get close to thought that she smelled disgusting. And that was like the story of like the novella.
Stuck with you. Yeah. Which is so it's so funny because all my friends love cheese. And like, if they met somebody who smelled like cheese, they would be like, I got to hang out with this chick because she probably has good access to cheese. Like,
yeah, she did. She had like really good cheese all the time. I mean, to be fair, yeah, like the smell of cheese is probably really bad after like, once it settles in. But I just like never forgot that. It's like hilarious to me.
That's so funny. How did they come up with that like plot line too? Like, can you think about like the reporter or the screenwriters sitting around, the table, like, what are we going to do for this season?
I don't know if you're familiar with like Spanish and like Latin American telenovelas, but they're all like that. They're all very dramatic and very like ridiculous plot lines with like evil twin,
love it.
Type of thing. I don't know. They just come up with like out of pocket stuff.
That's awesome. I love it. And it clearly is impactful because you're still talking about it,
Yeah, because I never forgot. I just never forgot.
And look at you have a successful career. You didn't have to go work in like the cheese factory. So,
yeah, I don't smell like cheese.
Helps
I don't smell like pepperoni pizza. So we're doing great.
You're doing great.
Guys, welcome to Fully Managed. You guys know me. I'm your host, Daniela. And you know what we do here? We talk about marketing, we talk about business, we give you tips, and we assist you guys in your business journeys. Today, we have a great guest. You guys already got to know her a little bit. Amy Winner from Wheels Up Collective. Hi, Amy.
Hello. I can't wait to talk more about cheese and pepperoni pizza and how it grows an agency.
More about savory fragrances,
Yes.
if you will. Amy, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. And to get the ball rolling, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your job? What do we have to know about you?
Sure. So I'm the co-founder of an agency called Wheels Up Collective. We work almost exclusively with early stage tech B2B startups. And I found my way to this career stop. I worked for 13 years in startups in Seattle, just as like the cloud revolution was, really like coming to Seattle, and just sort of found that I loved being in a fast moving situation where, you didn't have like very strict swim lanes for your role, and you kind of got thrown into different job descriptions that maybe you didn't know how to do. I love the fact that we can try things with our customers. Everybody's trying to figure it out. So, the customers that we have are usually like pretty creative and collaborative. And that is kind of my jam. I've always liked working with marketing strategies, like when things are changing, whether we're having an economic meltdown or, there's a new competitor or, it's a new company that needs new messaging or they're pivoting, like that's kind of my jam. And so working with startups all day long is the best of that.
So I actually, when I was looking into, Wheels Up Collective, I was doing research. I noticed that you guys do B2B, and you do specifically like tech companies, right?
Yep.
I'm curious about, because I feel like as consumers, just like normal, a lot of us are more familiar with B2C marketing because that's what we're sort of getting.
Yeah.
How does that, why did you choose to go into B2B specifically? And how did that sort of change the marketing approach from like what as a normal person we would be used to when it comes to strategies?
Yeah. So I've worked in retail. I've worked in retail marketing. I've worked in B2C marketing. B2B, I think it's a little more formulaic. I think B2C and retail is very emotion-based in a lot of cases. Whereas B2B, you're talking about solving tangible problems and quantifying the impact. So it becomes a little bit more formulaic. I think that also you can really map out what that buying process looks like. And it gets to the point where when you get enough data, it can be like not easy, but you can anticipate it and you can actually build capacity models around like, okay, how many salespeople do we need? How are we going to grow? How much budget do we need to grow? Which makes marketing a little bit more quantitative, I think, than some of the other marketing roles. I absolutely love working on a super creative brand campaign or branding for like a B2C company or a retail company. But I also just really love like the quantifiable metrics driven approach that B2B, typically has. I think also I've ended up there, and Wheels Up has ended up there because there's usually a little more budget in that area. Those companies are a little bit, because you can quantify it. If I can go to a CFO and say like, hey, you gave me this much money and it delivered this much in sales, like it's easy to grow it and to keep doing that. So I think that that's one of the reasons why we've sort of focused on the B2B arena a little bit more.
I think B2B is definitely a lot more like financially, I guess you have
stable.
Because I feel like with B2C, there's a lot more like financial constraints. And like you said, I do think that B2B marketing also changes with, it's a little bit less also just like, I feel like if I were to give a company who's selling something really simple, like, like a bakery, like your local bakery that's making cupcakes and cakes and stuff like that. Like my advice would be like, social media, like, like, just like go ham on social media. Whereas with B2B marketing, we would have to sit down and think about a strategy because like your audience is not going to be on TikTok watching or like on Instagram Reels and like getting a craving for a cupcake and then be like, I'm going to go down the street.
Yeah. It's funny because we're actually finding that like, because the audience matching has gotten pretty good with social, they are there, right? Like a lot of the customers are there. And so it's a matter of like figuring out what are the demographics that we can target on social. And then also like adjusting the messaging a little bit. So it's not like you need to buy this software, like it's talking about something that is going to catch their interest while they're doom scrolling, thinking about bakeries or, whatever hobbies they have. But it can be a way to sort of start to plant some of those like super, super top of funnel brand awareness messages. And it's super cheap. So
it's a different approach because like with B2B, like, your audience is, I mean, I think at this point in life, everybody's on social, right? Like on some form, even if you're not on TikTok or like you might not be on every single one, but you're at least in one.
Some of them. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're in one or two of all these platforms. But I think with B2B, the thing is that when people are doom scrolling, like the last thing that they want to think about is work, or like they're not going to find a marketing agency that they want on social media, right? They're going to do different types of research. So it's like you said, like kind of just like keeping that brand awareness is probably what you're going to get
subliminal messaging.
Yeah. It's such a different approach. I actually wanted to ask you, because you guys have been very much involved with like, startups and kind of like, I think when you're doing stuff with startups, I think people tend to kind of not see the difference between what a startup is versus like a small business, right?
Yeah, great point.
And I think marketing for these two different sort of buckets of business is so different. And so I want to like kind of hear what you have faced with, specifically with startup marketing, because I feel like a lot of people think immediately, again, back to that bakery analogy, is like, oh yeah, my local bakery, that's a startup. And I'm like, that's I think it's like, I guess technically
it could be. Yeah.
But it's so different than like when we're thinking of what startups are and what marketing for a startup is. So I want to hear your take, because you guys have worked with so many startups.
Yeah. So I think like, when I think my dad and I used to have like arguments about this all the time, because he thought this was just like, he was a small business owner and he thought like the startups were totally reckless because like they take my investment, and then it's a race to see, can you build something fast enough that you can get enough customers to become a viable market, like before you run out of money that somebody gave you. Like, so it really is like you throw money at the problem in hopes that like you're making the right gambles. And so a lot of times, like the marketing budgets are pretty healthy for a startup because depending on what stage they're at, once they kind of get to the point where they call it product market fit, we're like, okay, we know we built something that there is a market for, then it's okay, we're going to throw gasoline on this and like light a match and try and get as many customers as possible as quickly as we can before we run out of money. It's like, how many, I used to work at a company where every Friday I would get a piece of paper that said how many days we had left before we ran out of money, which was like a little bit alarming, but also like it's horrifying a little bit because the number got pretty low a couple of times. But so I think that's the big thing with startups is like how quickly can you scale, and you have to be able to try lots of things because by definition they don't really know what they're doing. They don't really know what messaging works, and so all the marketing that we do is somehow like rooted in a test. There is a hypothesis behind it. And we've kind of got like a plan for, okay, we think this is going to work. We think this is going to be the outcome, but what's the minimum amount of, money and time we can spend to test it and then either pivot to something else or throw some more money on it and scale it. A small business needs to be way more fiscally responsible, like they should not be probably dipping into the red unless there's a pretty good reason. And I think that, they also can't often scale that quickly. Like, your bakery couldn't handle 10x more customers one day. So I think that those small businesses have to really understand what outcomes they're looking for and what kind of customers they want to bring. I think the small business too, it becomes even more important to build repeat customers and customers for life, because
Like
it's so
loyalty.
expensive to go find one customer. So how can you really build a relationship with that customer and show them your personality and show them, why you're a good long-term partner, and kind of like take a little bit of time that way, building a relationship with them, so that they become like a fan for life, basically. So
Yeah, I think to me, a big difference that differentiates like how you would approach a small business versus a startup in a lot of different aspects, not just marketing, but especially marketing, is that most startups have investors or they have stakeholders. There's people behind that are putting in big money.
yeah,
The local bakery is probably the result of, this man that saved up for years
yeah,
to get to have enough money to open up a bakery, and they're just trying to make ends meet. Like
yep, yeah,
it's so different. And like I'm not like there's plenty of businesses that have become like huge franchises that started as a local bakery, right? So it's not that you can't scale that, but it's just the approach is so different from the get,
yeah.
like
It, yeah, and I kind of got like hooked on Shark Tank, that TV show, because
oh my
like
gosh,
it like you love it, right? It is the little local bakery that has like aspirations to franchise or whatever. And I love that you get to see. I don't know if it's still on, or I'm assuming it's still on. I don't know. I don't have like a regular TV, but like, you love that, like you see these like passion projects and like small businesses that people started with their life savings, and they want to scale and they want to grow it. And so it's super interesting to see like sort of the best of both worlds, where the sharks are telling you, like kind of picking like, this is how you have to scale. This is how you have to like do it if you want to go big. And so I think
I think
right.
Scrub Daddy came from Shark Tank.
That little sponge thing.
Yeah, the sponge that has like a smiley face.
Yeah.
They're really successful. And they started, like, obviously they were obviously a business before, but a lot of the success that came was after Shark Tank. Because the guy went on Shark Tank and did like a whole like infomercial on the thing as a sales pitch, and like it did really well. So like it kind of really shows how, like I think to me is like seeing all these hardworking people, I think to me is really inspiring. I mostly like what I criticize most about like Shark Tank, and I don't know if you're familiar, Dragon's Den is like the international version. That's like the name.
Okay.
But it's the same concept. It's just that like that's what it's called in like Mexico and Canada and like all of these other places. I just mostly don't like it when I notice that there's like a disconnect between like all of like these investors and business owners that are like the people with the money versus the person with the startup. I think it really kind of shows you how society has been fragmented, because like I've seen a lot of those videos, I don't know if you have, of like just sometimes the people that are like giving the money saying just the most insensitive or out of pocket things, and I'm like, how far removed are you from reality that you think that this is like, I don't know,
this is normal? Which also like it goes to show like how important it is to have like good chemistry with your investors, right? Because if they don't understand like the problems that you're trying to solve and the people who you're trying to solve them for, like they're not going to be able to give you great advice. So
I think I remember like specifically one, again, this was in Dragon's Den, so it's like a Canadian version, but this business owner, he was kind of just like talking about his business and how he invests in it, but he basically said like, okay, I work a 9 to 5 because I'm a dad, I'm married, I have a family. And then after my 9 to 5, I pour all of my time and all of the money that I'm making from that into this business. Like my job is to eventually be able to quit that so that I can just do my business, but I need more money. That was like his whole thing, which is why he was looking for investors so that he could like eventually quit that job and just be like 100% on his business. And I remember like a lot, like there were like the stake people, like the investors, they were like, I don't want to invest on something with someone that doesn't like put 100% into their business. And like, I quit my job and dedicated myself full time to my business. So I don't think that it's an excuse. And I remember watching that and thinking, what is wrong with you? Like this guy lives in Toronto in 2025. Like that is the worst thing that you could say to someone, like it's so out of pocket to me. So I think a lot of times when I watch that, it just kind of like shows me a lot of like the dent of like how businesses have need to sort of, I think once you get really successful, you lose a little bit of you lose sight, I
Lose
guess.
touch, yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah, well, their reality is like really different, right? They have people to
Yeah.
do things. So
Yeah.
yeah, totally. I still like the show. I'm a sucker for it. I like to see like the interesting ideas that people have and like how, there's always one shark who like asks like, how did you come up with this? Like where
Yeah.
did like they kind of tell you like the origin story and like, I don't
Yeah.
know, I love that. I'm a sucker for that. I'm a sucker for like creativity and ingenuity like that.
Me too. No, I love the show. I love watching like the drama too. Like it keeps it interesting, Like this is not to shit talk the show because like I still care about it. But I think it's just like a great societal type of I think it's a great way for people to kind of see a little bit into the business world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we sometimes like don't know a lot of the things that go on behind and behind all of this. So I think it's really good. And I think like if anything, if these businesses don't get investments, they do get a lot of brand awareness.
Well, I think a lot of people use it as like a marketing ploy. Like they don't actually need the money or want the money. They just want the national, TV coverage. And because you do get a lot of them get like a pretty substantial Shark Tank bump, I think. So
yeah, a lot of them get like, you're just putting your brand up there like for like people to like watch it and then they will be
it's a
interested.
big commercial. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
basically a half hour, 20 minute. How long are their pitches? 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. Commercial. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
Amy, what I also wanted to ask you about, which I think like is something that's really commendable, but also not attainable for a lot of people. So I want to know like how did you guys do that? Is you at Wheels Up emphasize a lot of like the type of clients that you work with, right? Like I saw it all over your website. Like the whole thing is like, you want to work with like kind clients, ambitious, fun, smart, like all of these sort of things are kind of put there as like the ideal client. How did you guys actually manage to get to a point where you could be a little bit more picky or like selective, I guess, with the clients that you have and be able to say like, yeah, we want this type of person with this like morale or this type of value? Because I think when you're starting something like this, a lot of people it's like I can't be picky right now and be like, no, because you don't seem funny, right? How did you actually do that to get to that point?
Well, actually, like it was kind of the other way around where like we decided who we wanted to work with and then like went and found those clients. And like the backstory is, my co-founder and I had both kind of come from like pretty toxic environments. And like, you hear this, you hear the tech startup stories of like bad cultures and, it's not always particularly easy to be a woman in tech. And so we both kind of had a little bit of, we'd had it. Like we weren't going to do it anymore. I'm not, I'm at a point in my career where like, I don't want to work with people who are, not kind. So, like, I don't think that's that much to ask, So, we were like very intentional in the beginning, about who what we were going to put up with and what we weren't. And when we created our team and we sort of cherry picked the people who we were going to bring into our team. They're all people who we knew very, very closely. And we were really careful to bring in people who were the same profile and the same expectations. And that makes me very, very protective of them. Like I do not want my account managers yelled at. I do not want, my project managers being told they're stupid. It's just like, I'm just not going to put up with that. And so, but it's really hard to turn work away. But I think what we found, the times that we did take clients that maybe we didn't feel great about, or we kind of knew weren't a great fit, like they were a disaster. Like they took twice as much work because they, we didn't gel well together. They were constantly trying to churn. We were constantly like pulling out these heroics to try and keep them. And it just like, they were not profitable. So it became like easier and easier to turn those kind of clients away or those prospects away because we're like, okay, we know this doesn't really work with us and our people. And I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that like we've been, wildly profitable for the whole 5 years that we've been in business. There have been like really tough months, but luckily the team that we have, like we prioritize like our own quality of work life that like I would rather go to work where I love it and work with people who I love than make a ton of money. Because like I've been in jobs where I made a ton of money with people who I hated, and like it was not worth it. So, but I understand too, like I'm coming from a place of privilege to be able to say that, right? Or to be able to make that decision.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
but
I feel like you get what you put out into the universe, like not to be like wooey, but like if you're very intentional about what you want and you're very clear about it, like usually it works out. I have found.
No, that's true. I was saying that to like my friend the other day. I was giving her like relationship advice, and she was like kind of complaining about a guy, and I was like, dude, like people get what they put out, like and it's not like like it doesn't have to be a spiritual thing. Like if you don't believe in karma, and like it doesn't, but I just feel like it's just basic law of like, cause and consequences. If you are doing bad things to people all the time, eventually something bad is going to come back to you, because you're going to mess with the wrong person. Like it's not like I was saying that to her, and I was like, like I think that's just like life, like you said, and it applies to everything, not just like relationships, but also like in general. If you have a business that's also treating everybody horribly and you're not collaborating with people well, that's what you're going to get, like you're going to have unhappy employees that want to quit all the time.
Yeah. Well, we had a client pretty early on that like yelled at an account manager, and we fired him. We said like, I'm sorry, like this isn't a good fit. Here's another agency we think you should work with, but like we're not going to, and we had like a couple conversations with him before because he had not been, like we didn't have a great working relationship. And, like that account manager will never leave me ever, because I stuck up for him. And I was like, this is the work. And everybody on the team like saw that like, this is the culture that we're trying to cultivate. And like, they saw that they don't have to put up with that. And like, they're fiercely loyal to Wheels Up. And so, that makes us better, and that makes us do better work, and that makes people more invested in their work. And so, like, again, like you get that back in spades when you take care of your people and you're willing to walk away from a client because of it.
Yeah. And like, honestly, I think, when you are not like, I think that's super important for an employee. Because if you are not like inherently, I think a lot of people don't like to hear this, but I think inherently, if you are not the owner of a business, you're just not going to be as driven to
of
like
course
care.
Not. Yeah, of course not.
You're not going to care as much as like the owner for everything to be successful. A lot of people are going to be just showing up, trying to get their bag, and then going home.
Yeah, totally. Take the check.
Yeah. And so you have to like create an environment where you make people feel like they want to put more into it. And that can only happen if you make them feel like, yeah, I want to keep this job. I like this job, like I believe in this company. And that comes from stuff like that. So it's like a long-term investment in the long run, because then you're not going to have like high turnover. You're not going to have people talking bad about your company. You're going to have like loyal people.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on like what your business model is and what you're selling or your service is, because there are probably a lot of jobs where like you can have a revolving door of employees and it's fine. It doesn't matter. Or, your customers can have like a sort of subpar customer service interaction and it doesn't matter. But, for us to be able to charge a premium and, have repeat, we work a lot with VCs and private equity companies where they're referring us to their portfolio companies. Like we have, that's important to us. So, it's worth investing that, and it's worth, paying people a little more and paying them in flexibility and respect. And so I don't know.
Yeah,
they do better work.
That only works with like, I think kind of having that kind of slacking a little bit on those things only works when you are big enough that it's not going to affect you. And I feel like that only usually happens, especially I think in agency work, that's not the case, because agency work is also so personal.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's so like human involved. I think if you're talking about like a larger business, like, I don't know, like Coke, right? Like Coca-Cola, like, dude, like they're so big, they're probably going to be fine if their customer service department might be like, not the best.
Don't take people's Coke Zero away from them. Like that's talk about a must have versus a nice to have. Like you must have the Coke Zero. They're going to put up, so.
Exactly. It's like a global product at this point.
But even like a doctor's appointment, like if you go to the doctor and like the receptionist is like super cranky, like you're not going to quit going to the doctor, right? If you're sick. So I don't know. I think there's a big difference between a must have and a nice to have. And, the level of support you need to provide.
Yeah, and like in general, I mean, I think like it's just like so different, right? I think people sometimes fail to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right.
And Amy, the last thing that I wanted to ask you about today, is since you guys do so much tech, AI,
Yep.
right? That's like the big thing and like the
Everybody's
conversation.
in AI. Yeah.
Everyone talks about AI, everyone's using AI. Some people are against it, some people are all for it. There's people right in the middle. How is that affecting your work, or how is that affecting your collaboration? In any, I mean, I know that AI has sort of been integrated into like expediting things like email writing and stuff like that with things like ChatGPT, but I'm curious to hear like in the tech industry and like marketing for tech, how is AI actually affecting this whole thing?
Well, I think it a couple ways. I think it's able to like solve problems that we couldn't solve before, or solve them like better, faster, cheaper. So it really is like accelerating solution delivery for some of the clients. But with that comes like a whole nother like bag of challenges where, if the customer doesn't know that their problem's actually solvable, then, you really have to go way back to the top of the funnel to start like with thought leadership and nurturing people that like, hey, you can actually fix this now. Like there's actually a way to do it. And then you can start selling them your product, And so I think that like, that's one way. I think that there are, to your point, there's like a wide spectrum of appetite for AI right now, or, impressions of AI. And like pretty much every one of our clients, like they have some customers that are like all in with AI, like give it to me. You don't have to sell me on the benefits. I want to buy AI. And then there are others who are like, it's like Terminator. It's going to take over the earth and we don't want to have anything to do with it. And we're not going to support it. And AI is evil. And so like, you have to kind of like really be able to understand it. It becomes a persona exercise and like really defining those personas and figuring out, okay, well, how are you going to speak to these like opposite ends of the spectrum to sell the same product or the same service, and like coming to where they are in that bigger decision about technology. But I also think that like there's a huge opportunity to like really tell some amazing, interesting stories. Like I just listened to we have a client that does a podcast, and they were interviewing somebody who is developing technology to recycle things in space. Like, how cool is that? Like, they are actually making a recycling center in space. So like, I think that there's like, there's the interest part, the interesting interest part of AI, being able to do things that like I never thought we'd be able to do. And it's kind of easy to get people to pay attention when you've got like stories that cool. So
I think people don't realize that AI was already being used before.
Forever. Yeah.
Like it's been a thing. It's just that right now it's like growing a lot, and it's like the thing, but it's, a lot of people didn't even realize when AI, like I was telling that to my sister, it was like, what do you think Siri was? Like Siri has been around for ages. Alexa, what do you think that is? That's AI. Like, like AI has been integrated into technology for a long time already. It's not new. I would say it's just like right now it's having a boom.
Well, I think it's like, it's like anything. It grows, like it plateaus and it spikes and it grows. Like we're definitely like at a spike right now where the technology is getting easier to implement into other, technology projects, and it's becoming more like mainstream. Like I have a family member who's, she's, I don't know, 70, and like she has ChatGPT on her phone and is constantly like, oh, I don't know, let me ask ChatGPT. And I'm like, how do you even know about this? And so I think it's having a mainstream moment too, where people can use it every day to do stuff like that, and
everyday life stuff. I think I knew that it was. I realized that things were changing when like you said, ChatGPT is on my phone too. But I think what surprised me was that now people say, let me ask ChatGPT. But where before, like, it was like, I would Google things.
I'll Google it.
Yeah. And now people are not Googling things anymore. They're putting it on ChatGPT. And I'm like, when did this change happen? Where like a lot of like the primary search engine became ChatGPT. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, SEO is like completely changed, and if you're not optimizing for AI in your SEO plan, like you're going to be in trouble pretty soon here. So it's really, I think, we look back at like major, you look back at like the world before social media and after social media, like totally different, right? Like you look at the world before the first smartphone came out, the first iPhone came out, and after, totally different. And I think we're kind of like at the precipice of that right now. So I'm excited to see like where it's going. And I hope it doesn't turn into like the Terminator where the AI machines take over us. But you never know. I think
I don't think so. I don't think so
either.
I'm like, maybe I'm like, I might, this might be me coping, but I just feel like that's like so out of reality. I mean, because like I have heard people who are like, oh, we're gonna turn into like Wall-E world, like we're gonna all be living in a spaceship, be really fat. And I'm like, I think it's a bit much. Like,
maybe not my lifetime.
Yeah, I'm like, I do think that I just think that every scientific technological advancement that we have done throughout the millennia that we have been sort of existing since the Stone Age has changed the way that we approach things and how we view the world. But that doesn't make us like go away. If anything, humans are parasites. And I know, we're gonna survive just as much as a cockroach is. I don't know, that might be me, but I just feel like it's like, like when machines like in the Industrial Revolution started to come in and like people were like, oh, we're losing jobs. And I'm like, oh yeah, a lot of jobs did get replaced by machinery and like,
But now you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm happy about
that. You really want to sit there putting a cap on a toothbrush for the whole day? Like, like you had a machine that did that for you. And yes, like there was a big financial crisis, like, and that sucks. But I think it just kind of like pivoted the world into like, okay, I have to do something else for work now. I have to like have a different type of skill. And I think that that's just what's going to happen.
Well, actually, like in the AI like circles, they have this thing called the PDOOM, the probability of doom. And it's like you have your own PDOOM number. Like what percentage of a chance do you think that AI will like take over the world and like cause worldwide demise? And so like, if you ask me what my PDOOM was, it vacillates between like single digits and maybe like, I don't know, on a bad day, like 100%. But it's funny because a lot of times like, on like, podcasts or interviews or whatever that, we're talking to AI leaders, like they're like, what's your PDOOM? So it's kind of funny to hear people's different like perspective and rationale on that too. So
I had no idea that PDOOM, I'm like, good. I'm gonna like Google that or like ChatGPT it, I guess.
Yeah. It's a thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's me having wishful thinking because I'm not an AI expert. So I like don't take my word for it. But I just feel like it's like, like I think it's just gonna change. I didn't necessarily think that it's gonna take over, but it might.
Well, like you hear like the stories again, like those super interesting stories of like how, AI was able to detect cancer like 2 years earlier than, a regular screening or, it's able to do these like amazing things for society. Right. But most of the AI that I see is like people trying to sell you a $29.99 a month subscription to an AI bot that automatically responds to LinkedIn comments. Like, I feel like, why are we using this amazing technology for something that's stupid? And, I think that like humanity is going to like get drugged down to that, that's where the appetite for AI is. So
yeah, I just think that I don't know. I have a hard time believing that we are going to make something sentient. Like
ooh, they say it's very close, but I don't know. We'll see. So
okay, maybe I'm not going to keep talking.
Like, not very close, but
yeah. But I think that's a great note to end this on, Amy. It's been so great to have you today. But before we finish the podcast, I do want to give you the space. If anything that we spoke about today resonated with anyone, they want to work with Wheels Up, floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find us on the web at wheelsupcollective.com or on all the socials. We would love to chat. One of the things that I try and do a couple times a week is my favorite thing is to talk to a business owner and try and figure out like how we can come up with ideas for them. I love to, that like strategy brainstorming is my absolute favorite part of my job. So I invite you to follow the link to schedule time with me and pick my brain. And yeah, we'd love to hear what you're building.
Amazing. Yeah, I will be adding the links to the description of this so that everybody can easily access them.
Thanks.
And thank you so much, Amy, for being on the podcast. And everybody else, I will see you on the next episode.
Yep. And look for the perfume, the pepperoni pizza perfume coming to
perfume.
a store near you.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.